guys didn't get the welcome and the introductions, so we're going to do that again real quickly. Thank you for bearing with us. Technology, we've all been there over the last year, so appreciate your patience. I'm going to invite LaTanya with Metter Staffing to do a quick introduction, followed by Christy, who's going to represent the Economic Alliance, and we're going to jump in today. So thanks for your patience.
Welcome again, everyone. My name is LaTanya. I am an account manager with Metter Staffing Services. For those of you that may not know about Metter Staffing, we've been in business for over the last 50 years. We are very honored to be able to service our communities in the Pasadena, Deer Park, Houston, and surrounding areas. If we can ever be of service to you, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We are thankful for all of you to join us today for the second session on the power of effective communication. We are very thankful that we have the opportunity to partner with the Economic Alliance and with Right Now leadership. So if we would, I'm going to have Christy Claypool come up and to give her introduction.
Awesome, thank you, LaTanya. And I am Christy Claypool with Metter Staffing Services. And typically, Chad Burke, President and CEO of Economic Alliance Houston Port Region, does the introduction. He wasn't able to be here today, but he wanted me to be sure to remind each of you to please check out the Economic Alliance. Remind each of you to just find out what the Economic Alliance is all about. Look at their website and the 8 task force that they offer. See if their mission and their goals align with your professional and personal goals, which is to basically market and grow a vibrant regional economy here at the here in our region, and also to let you guys know that we are just always here for you and able to be of help at the Economic Alliance. As we partner with RIT, Metter Staffing Services, along with the Economic Alliance, we are so proud to offer this leadership training to you to develop and grow your business teams. So without delay, I would like to welcome Rick Corson with Right Now Leadership.
Yay! Let me get the picture. Awesome. Well, welcome, my friends. And again, thank you for the patience. You know, adapt and overcome, right? Leadership is all about adapting and overcoming. We've had to do that for the last year and a half in everything that we do. And so we appreciate your hanging with us. Want to give you a couple introductions as we go through some things. We're going to start the presentation. So Val, if you'll start the PowerPoint. Also, you guys have got notes in your chat. Hopefully you downloaded your notes already and you've got those. We're going to go through those today. I'll make a few adjustments to try to keep us on time today because I know your time is valuable. And so we'll make adjustments as we go. But first of all, I just want to say thank you and welcome to our second Transformational Leadership Series on the power of effective communication. We had a great turnout last month. We've got another dozen or so people in the room today. You are welcome to join us in person for our April presentation. If you want some free lunch, come on and join us. But thank you for being with us over your lunch hour today. So as we go through this, I won't spend a lot of time on this. If you've been a part of this, you've already met me. I've been doing leadership development and growth, teaching and education, training and pastoring for over 30 years now. Most importantly, I'm a husband 30 years. I would be corrected if I said 29. We just had an anniversary. And I've got 2 great kids, and they're really the joy of my life. My family, so I would say, I'm not going to go through all these pictures, but I would tell you if I had to pick one picture, I'd better pick the one with me and my wife at the Dodgers game. But we love food. Our dog's on there. We had for almost 19 years, who passed this last year. Love baseball, love food. That's a little bit about me, but I love adding value to people. And so as we start today, I love to really just ask a question. So I really want to start with a question for you guys. In the last 8 months, how many of you have experienced any challenge, difficulty, or conflict in a relationship? In the last 8 months. Okay, everybody's hand. Thank you for not raising your hand back there. That's my wife. She did not raise her hand because we don't have any conflict in our relationship. But okay, 8 months, right? Last year. How about the last 8 days? 8 days? I wish I could see you guys online. How about the last 8 hours? How about the last hour? Right? If we're honest, if we're truthful, the reality is conflict and challenges in relationship are all around us, happening all the time. And sometimes it can feel like we're working against each other, paddling in opposite directions when we're trying to communicate, whether it's at work, with our family, with our kids, or just in relationship. We must be able to communicate effectively, right? And this is the key to everything that we do. So I want to ask you a question as we get started. I'm going to have you do a little self-assessment. You don't need to tell me, you don't need to post anywhere, but you should have some notes. And what I'm asking you to do is on a scale, a baseline of 1 to 10, how effective do you believe you are in communicating? Okay, now I'm not just talking about verbal communication. I'm talking about your body language, your expressions, your posture. Just how effective do you feel you are from 1 to 10, 1 being I am miserable at communicating, to 10 being can't get any better than me. Okay, and you can write that in your notes, because I'm hopefully going to add some value to you today that we're going to ask this question at the end. And if I've done my job, you should have tools and resources to be a better communicator when we finish today than when we started. Okay, so go ahead and put that in there. If you're not sure what to put, think about asking your spouse or your kids, and what kind of communicator would they say you are? That's a dangerous question. Okay, so let's think about great communicators. Let's think about those people who have impacted us in our lives. Who's the greatest communicator you've ever heard, and why? Put that in the chat if you're online. We've got a team back there answering your questions. Christy's back there, Maricella's back there, so they'll be responding to you and asking you some questions, so stay engaged with us. But put some names in there, and you guys in the room, who are some of the best communicators, and I don't care how you define it, that you've ever heard? Anybody? Who's communicators? Who do you like?
Well, actually, seeing President Reagan's picture reminded me when he was running for president. I lived in Utah, and he made a whistle stop, airplane whistle stop at the airport. And our band went and played for him. And as a disinterested 9th grader, I couldn't believe, he just captivated me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else have anybody that just stood out? Could be someone we know, someone we don't know, right? Think about this. And these people up here, we would all say probably are effective communicators in one way or another. They've motivated people. And I ask people why. What makes someone an effective communicator? I get a lot of different answers based on how people feel connected to the one communicating. Because communication is all about connection. And we're going to talk about that more and how we make a connection. But I've heard people say it's all about their ability to get a message across. Or it's all about their ability to be understood. Like, I can understand them. They speak my language, right? It's something I've heard. Or they motivate or inspire me. These are all things that we might say when we try to define what an effective communicator looks like. Have you ever thought about what it would be like if you could read other people's minds in communicating? Okay, maybe you don't want to think about that, because that means they could read your mind. Right? So we may not want to do that, but if you could read someone's mind, get inside of them to understand what they're hearing and how they hear, would you adjust how you're communicating so that you could be heard and understood? You probably would, right? Because we're going to talk about this, and it's a little bit later as we go through this, but a big part of communicating is communicating to be heard and understood. That's really our greatest desire. And that'll be some blanks, and I'll tell you where you can fill those in. In your notes, you've got some blanks. We'll try to hit all of them, but if you're a blank person and I don't get to it, put it in the chat. I will get you your notes filled in for you if you need it, right? That also speaks to your communication style, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So here's what I've experienced. You will lead and communicate based on what you believe is most important and what is the most important objective in communicating. When you run across someone who doesn't believe like you do, in other words, they don't communicate like you do, how do you typically feel? Are those people you run to get to know and be around? Or are you going, man, I probably am going to avoid communicating with them? And it may not be personal, but you understand there's a greater challenge to communicate with people who don't communicate the way you do. Wouldn't it be nice if everyone that reported to us, or everyone we work with, or our bosses, that we have to communicate just like we did? It would make life so much easier. But the reality is we don't. And that's why communication can be so challenging. When we don't feel like we're being heard and understood, when we are running into that obstacle, or we're talking to someone who doesn't communicate the way we do, it can lead to frustration. It can lead to personal offendedness. We can become offended because we don't understand the context or their body language or their tone, right? It can lead to miscommunication and failed objectives. The power of communication is at the center of everything we do. Every conflict, every challenge, every trial, every success, and every failure stems from our ability to communicate, and whether we do it effectively or not. And when we get frustrated, we typically will do a couple things. When I get frustrated and don't feel like I'm being heard and understood, ask my kids, I get louder. And I'm already really loud. You don't need me to get louder. As if me getting louder will mean you'll understand me better, right? Or we become more control-oriented and we don't really talk anymore, we just direct, right? When we don't feel heard or understood, we begin sometimes to get more aggressive. Or the very opposite of that, for some of you, you may just withdraw. You may just stop communicating, because what's the point? It doesn't matter what I say, they're not listening to me. And we probably all had that situation in our lives. So one of the blanks you got in your notes here, it says, when communication is only about information, outcomes, or building relationships, we fail to connect. And that's why I love this quote from Gerald Ford. It says, talent is not enough. Experience is not enough. To lead others, you must be able to communicate, and connecting is the key to communicating. It's a great quote. If we believe that communicating is the key to success in every area of our lives, and I do, then what are we doing to grow ourselves and our ability to communicate? What work are we putting in to better understand how we communicate? Typically, we want to change you. I want you to change how you listen and hear. It would make my life much easier. But if we're both desiring that, you can understand we're gonna butt heads quite a bit. I've found that most individuals and organizations invest the least amount of time and resources in developing strong leaders that communicate effectively, and they spend the most time and resources in systems and processes and tactical training, which is critically important. But what point is it to have really well-trained, skilled employees that can't communicate? They can't get their message across. They can't talk to their clients, or they can't talk to coworkers or bosses. Communication is central to everything we do. So making a connection is the key to our greatest desire when communicating. Here's the other blanks that I already filled in for you, right? When we know we have made a connection, it's all about feeling heard and understood. That's really what the connection is all about. And at our heart, we want to be heard and understood. Why? Because when we're heard and we're understood, we can move people toward an objective. When you are hearing and understanding what I'm saying, then it doesn't mean you will agree, but it means we have a dialogue and I can move you toward a shared objective because we've been heard and understood. When we don't feel heard and understood, we typically get louder, become more aggressive, and withdraw, and no one wins. Now, typically right here, I would be showing you a video. I am not going to show this at this time to save our time. This video is a Monty Python video. I'm showing my age, so forgive me. But I will send the link. I'll make sure you guys have got a link if you want to see it. It is a perfect example of the challenge of communicating. And I strongly encourage you to check it out. And in the follow-up email, I will put the link if you want to see it. But for our time today, I'm not going to show you guys the video. So let's see if I can go buy it before it starts. I can. So your next blank in your notes, and here's the reality that we know. Communication is difficult. Would you guys agree? You guys in the chat that are online, go ahead and put that in the chat. If you agree, put communication is difficult, right? And you know who that quote was from? That's a famous quote. You know who I got that from? Everyone who's ever communicated. Because it's true. Communication is a great challenge. Poor communication, when we don't communicate well, it always leads to conflict. How many of you have ever experienced conflict in your life? Let me ask this. Has anyone never experienced conflict? Man, I'm waiting for that person. No, I never have conflict, right? I want to talk to that person because it's just not a reality. It's not true. We experience conflict all the time. Our challenge isn't conflict. Our challenge is we don't know how to process and deal with conflict. And oftentimes when we're trying to resolve conflict, we're dealing with the wrong things. We're addressing the wrong situation, and we have a hard time finding resolution. That'll be one of our future Transformational Leadership Series topics will be how to deal with conflict. So a failure to communicate always rests, and here's where I'm going to step on some toes. It always rests with the one who is communicating. It's another blank in your notes. You may not like to hear that, but the reality is, the truth is, when we fail to communicate, it's not the person listening who's at fault. I'm going to put it on us, the one communicating, because it's our job to do everything we can to be heard and understood effectively, which means we have to move from being selfish communicators to selfless communicators. I'm going to talk about that in just a second as well. So I love this quote. So communication is difficult. Poor communication always leads to conflict. Here's another quote, George Bernard Shaw. I love this, right? The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. If you have children, you know what I mean. Young children, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 years, I don't know, somewhere in there when you decide they're big enough and old enough to clean their room. And you tell them it's time to go clean your room. And they'll rebel and they'll push back and they'll kick around a little bit, but they go to clean their room, right? They come out of their room and they come, Mom, Dad, I cleaned my room. And you're going, okay. So you walk into that room. And when you walk into that room, what do you typically see when your young child said they cleaned their room? You'll see the desk, everything shoved into a drawer. You'll see stuff stuffed under the bed. You open the closet and it is just a pile of the clothes. Their bed the covers are pulled up, but they may not be made. And they're looking at you saying, I cleaned my room. And you're looking at them saying, no, you didn't. This room isn't clean. There was a failure to communicate. Now, we're going to blame them and say they're rebellious, they don't listen, they didn't want to, and now they're in trouble. But the reality is, their understanding of a clean room and yours is two different things. Now, that's a trivial, simple thing with our child. But we do that in the workplace and with peers and with employees and with our bosses all the time. We assume that we understand what we're saying. We walk away both nodding our heads saying we get it. And then the reality is we come back around to see if we've accomplished what we thought we communicated. And we find we're on two different pages with two different outcomes. Right? So the failure to communicate, this idea that the illusion that we think that we have communicated. So the truth about this, and I'm going to go through this with you, and these are more blanks in your notes. The truth about communication is this. We are selfish communicators. It would be much easier if you guys, have you ever said this? Let me ask it this way. Have you ever said to a spouse, a child, a coworker, you know what I mean. You've been around me long enough, you understand, right? That's not what I was meaning. You've heard me say this I could go down and down the list of what we say. What we're saying behind that is, you need to adjust how you hear so that you can hear how I speak. Because I'm not going to take the time to adjust how I speak to help you hear. Now, we wouldn't say that directly, but we live that way. We act that way. We lead that way. We're all selfish communicators. We put the responsibility of understanding on the listener. So we've said this again. I'm going to repeat it. A failure to communicate always begins with the one communicating. Now, if this is true, I'm going to help you today. If you believe this, and you can play some scenarios, I am going to give you some practical tools to take away to help you improve your communication, which is going to help you improve reaching your objectives, whether it's with your family or whether it's at work. So if we really want to increase our influence and our impact, as well as grow our teams and increase our productivity, our goal should be to move from selfish to selfless communicators. So let me give you 3 ways you can do that, okay? Here's 3 practical things you can engage today to begin to move from selfish to selfless. The first one is you got to be a better listener. This isn't rocket science, you guys. Right? This is why I make the big bucks, right? Because this revelation that I'm giving you, the truth is, we have to learn to be better listeners. Being a better listener is not something we do naturally, because typically we're listening so that we know what to say next, not to hear what they're trying to say. So the first one is be a better listener. Listen to understand, not to be understood. Listening isn't about them understanding you. It's about you hearing and understanding them. Second one is know how to ask good questions. That's tied to the first one. Good questions communicate that you're listening. because you're asking for clarification. You're asking for understanding. You're reiterating what they're saying. You are showing interest in their communicating by asking them good questions along the way. It shows value to them. Questions demonstrate learning and understanding. Third thing is, learn how to communicate to be heard and understood, which is what we're going to spend most of the rest of the time on. To be selfless in our communication. Here's the thing about being selfless. We actually get to be selfish. Because when you're selfless, I am going to communicate in your style. I'm going to understand how you communicate, and I'm able to do that. I'm now able to communicate quicker, more efficiently, and I'm now able to help move our team towards our desired objective because I've learned how to communicate in a way that you hear and you understand. So when you walk away, you're more apt to accomplish the desired objective. So we're actually being selfless to be selfish in our objectives. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's keep moving through real quickly. A couple more things. What I'm going to talk about and what I want to share with you, this next thing is a timeout. So we're going to take, I won't take the full 2 minutes because of our time, but we're about halfway through. And I want you to take a minute. I'm a former teacher and educator, right? And so I'm going to check for understanding. There's 3 things I love to do. You'll hear me say this in every webinar and every presentation. You should always be looking to learn something, live something, and lead something. Learning is what we're doing now. I'm giving you information. So I want you to take a second. What is your takeaway so far? What have you heard? What have you seen? What are you chewing on? What are you wrestling with? Take a second, write down something that you are learning, right? That you've heard for the first time or you've heard for the 1,000th time, but it's now making sense. Okay? And so in the margins in your notes, I've given you a space to do that. We won't go through all 3 questions, but here's the next thing I would ask. Now that you've written something that you've learned, how is that going to impact your behavior? How will you live out what you've learned? If you don't take your learning into living, it's just information, it's noise. There's no change or transformation if we don't take what we're learning and move it into living. And the last thing, lead, it's about who you're going to give it away. Who will you share this with? Who will you talk to? Okay. Again, if we had more time, I'd give you a little bit more time to process through this, but I want to jump in to the heart of this, and I want to give you some practical resources and tools to help you grow that personal communication number that you put at the beginning. So we're going to talk about the DISC. If I could ask all of you online, and if you've already taken the DISC in some form or fashion, or personality inventory, communication inventory, go ahead and put in the chat what you've done. And maybe some of you have taken the DISC before. You might have taken the Myers-Briggs. You might have taken StrengthsFinder, or the colors, or the animals, or what is it? Is it Enneagram or Ennea? It's Enneagram, right?
Enneagram.
If you guys, Enneagram. I don't know what. It's pretty popular, whatever it is. I have not done it yet, but all of my family has, and they talk about what they are, and I'm lost. There's a lot of inventories out there and assessments we can do. I'm going to share with you the Maxwell method of DISC. I'm a certified trainer in DISC. I'm a coach for DISC. This is what I do professionally with teams and organizations. And every DISC that you might have taken are essentially the same in their questioning. What's different is how they filter the responses based on the organization or what we're trying to accomplish. For us, the DISC that we give, and I'm going to be giving away a couple DISC inventories here and giving you a chance to get some of those inventories for you and your teams if you want. We're filtering them through communication and leadership. So your results are going to help you understand you as a leader, your strengths and areas of growth, and then how you can read and understand other people. DISC is not new. It's been around since 1928. A guy named William Marston founded it. And he basically said that there are 4 characteristics of all people. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. It doesn't have to do with environment. We're all made up of 4 kind of characteristics, and we'll all have a dominant one that is our natural tendency, and then usually a couple others that play into that as well. And so the DISC consists of 4 things, D-I-S-C, and the first thing is the D, which is dominance, and we're going to unpack this. I is influence, S is steady, and C is compliant. And we're not there in your notes yet, but we're going to get there, and I'm going to share some characteristics with you about the different styles. So let's take a look at this, and let me give you a little picture. And I've chosen these pictures, and you can see them online, to kind of demonstrate, give you an image, because some of us are visual learners, right? To give you an image of what each of those might look like. What we're looking at is patterns of behavior. and patterns of communication, and they're defined by these 4 different characteristics. What's unique about this and the report that I give you is we filter it through the lens of communication and leadership. So it helps you identify your team's communication, the strengths of your team. We can do a team report where we'll see the disc of your team. Is your team generally more dominant in what they do? Are they more relational? Are they more tactical? And we can diagnose your team as well as the individuals on your team. And it helps you understand then how to move your team forward in the things that they're wanting to look at. So let's look at these a little bit. So the D we already said is dominant. Okay? The I is an influencer. S is steady. And C is compliant. And we're going to define these and unpack these a little bit. But I want you to look at this as another way. The D and the I. People who are Ds and Is are typically more outgoing. They're going to be in the front of the line. They're going to be the ones that stand out in a room. Your attention will go to them more than it will the others. So Ds and Is are more outgoing. S's and C's are more reserved. You won't necessarily see them or notice them in the room. Doesn't mean they're not there, but they won't do anything that's going to cause them to stand out. Is making sense so far? You guys in the room, are you tracking with me? We're coming kind of fast here. And online, are you guys doing okay? Just put a thumbs up in that chat. Let the team know that you're tracking okay. So let's look at I's and S's. I's and S's are people-oriented. They are comfortable around people. They like people. They like groups of people. They like being a part of the group. D's and C's, not they don't like people, but they're all about outcomes. They're task-driven. They're about getting across the finish line. They're about making sure it's done right. They're about systems and processes. So as you look at this, if we put it together, I want you to begin, if you have not taken the disc before, begin to kind of look where you might be. Where you say, okay, that sounds right. And let me give you another example of this. I'm going to give you a party. Let's say we walk into a party. It's a big party. And you walk into the party and you're looking out over the party. And in that party, in that room, you see a group of people huddled around a couple people. Those 2 people they're huddled around, they're talking. One of them's telling jokes and the other's telling us, a story or how to process something, or, I don't know. They're giving instruction. But then there's people around them that are listening attentively to these people talking. And you keep looking across the room, and then you see these people over on the couch, kind of isolated by themselves, right? So the people in the center of that circle, they're going to be a D and an I. The I is going to be telling the jokes. The D is going to be giving instruction. The people around the circle listening are going to be S's. They love to be a part of the conversation. They don't feel like they need to lead it. But they're team players. They want to be there. They want to be in the mix. Our lovely C's, they're on their phones in the corner of the room, hoping no one comes and asks them any questions. They're there because they have to be there, or their spouse had said they're going to be there, and they're just waiting for their significant other to come and say, we can go now. They're not being rude. They're not being ugly, but their comfort level is not in the crowd, right? Where did you fit in that? You may fit in several places, but there's an area that you feel most comfortable. That's going to tell you what your disc is. Making sense? Are you guys tracking with me so far? Because we're going to go a little bit deeper. Now, in your notes, you've got this, and you can write these down. I'm not going to talk about each one of them, but I want you to understand, because here's the other thing I want you to do. In your notes, you'll see an area where it says someone you know is like this. I don't want you just thinking about where you are. As I go through this, I want you to start identifying people close to you. They may be bosses. They may be children. There's disc for kids that we do. They may be spouses, family. I don't know. Start thinking about who this sounds like, and then write their name under their letter, because that's going to help you to become a selfless communicator. So let's start with the D's. D's are control-oriented people. It's not good or bad. These are neutral statements. People ask me all the time, is there a stronger or better or more perfect disc? No, the perfect disc is yours. There is not one that's better than another. And you're not in a box. We're not trying to isolate you, say you're a D or you're an I. No, you're not. You're an amazing, beautiful combination of all of this. But the better you understand how you're wired, the more able you are to walk in your strength and your gifts and be effective on the team. And when we know our roles, man, our teams become powerful. because we understand the value of each person. So D's are dominant, they seek control, they're very decisive and direct. Their challenge is impatient. And we're going to take a look at this in some conflict in areas of challenge. So those are the D's. The I's, excuse me, are persuasive. They tell, if you can't tell who I am, right? I'm an I, but I'm an ID. So they're very close, but my dominant is I. They're spontaneous, they're storytellers, they're friendly. Their challenge is short attention span. It's like the dog in Up, right? And the squirrel goes by squirrel, and they're gone. You know, I's, and I can say this about the I's because I am one. Great starters, great visionaries, have a hard time finishing. We need these others to help us bring things across the line. Those are I's. S's. Man, I love S's. S's are the rock. They are steady. They're team-oriented. They're extremely loyal. They're going to make sure things get done. They're going to follow through on the tasks, right? The problem with S's is they're oversensitive. They take things too personal, typically, right? So that's your S's. C's. Man, we got to have C's. C's are probably the ones I struggle with the most, but the ones I need the most. C's are compliant. It's right and wrong, black and white. There's not a lot of gray. They love systems and processes and accuracy. A C will drive you crazy asking you questions because they're not asking it because they think you're stupid or that you don't know it. They're asking because they want to make sure they know everything they need to know before they go to execute what you're asking them to do. So that's really important. Their challenge is, they love systems and processes. That their challenge is that they are unresponsive because they don't communicate. They won't offer input on their own. If they're a strong C, they'll just dig their heels in. And you'll feel everything slowing down and you won't know why. It's typically because a C is going, wait, don't go there. They just don't say anything. Okay, I hope you guys are tracking with me and you guys online. I hope it's making sense. You've seen some people. This next slide, I'm not going to get into a lot, but I want you to look at the colors. Here's what I want you to understand about DISC as we go through this and why this is so important for you and your teams. These show characteristics and the challenges of every trait. The left-hand column tells you the category, and then the columns all the way across are the D, I, S, and C. I'm not going to go through this in depth. If I was going to do a training with you and your team, we'd spend more time here. But what I want you to notice is the highlighted areas. Here's the thing about our personalities. There are personalities that we get along with and we love being around, and there are personalities that challenge us. Our problem is that when we find a personality that challenges us, and you guys all know this, we can become offended. We get frustrated. We withdraw. We don't want to necessarily have a conversation with them because they're challenging to us. That's not personal. In the purest sense, people who frustrate you aren't trying to frustrate you. Their goal is they're not looking at you going, I'm going to really get them today. I'm not going to say anything. Or I'm going to ask them 1,000. They're not doing that. It's not personal. One of the things that DISC helps is really dealing with conflict and culture within an organization. Because when we understand this and we don't take it personal, we're able to give grace to the people on our team. I could tell you lots of stories of my journey with this, but the best is within my marriage, in my relationship. My wife and I are very different. Strong D, strong I. And before we understood this, I got offended a lot. And my wife would just go about her business because she didn't take things personal. She's blowing by it. And I'm like, wait. Talk to me. Share with me. Solve the problem. And I would think she didn't care. It had nothing to do with that. We just didn't understand how we were wired. That same principle is true in the work environment. We take things personal when it was never, 99.9% of the time, it's pure. People aren't being personal. We just have natural tendencies of collision. So what I've done in this, I've highlighted areas. If you look at the D's, their challenges with insensitive people. They're not sensitive. Well, your S's are oversensitive. Put a D and an S in the room, and before you know it, they're going to have some trouble. But it's not personal. They just don't understand that's how they're wired. So right now, you can look at this. I want you to where do you think you are? Which one do you think you primarily are? And in your notes, I want you to take just a quick second, and I want you to write down in your notes who you think you have the greatest challenge with communicating. Which disc, which one of these will be the one that you will probably go, man, I love these. This one I'm going to be challenged with. And I want you to think for a second, because this is the reality of life and work every single day. Our isolation, some will withdraw, some will get more intense because we want to be heard, we want to be understood, but we don't understand that these are how we're wired, how we're created. They're not bad. We just have to each learn how to adjust our style to speak in a way that others hear and understand, so that we together can accomplish the objectives set before us. And in businesses and teams, this is critical. It's not just about managing towards an objective, it's about growing your people. Our next month's conversation is all moving from disengaged to engaged employees. We're going to talk about employee engagement. How do you engage an employee? Let them know they're heard and understood, that their voice matters, right? How do you do that? Well, you've got to understand how they're wired. And they need to understand how you're wired so we can adapt and adjust so that we can have the best outcome of that organization, company, team, or objective in mind. I hope that's making sense. So as you look at that and you kind of know where you are, you should be able to go, yeah, I'm going to struggle with a D, or I'm going to struggle with a C, right? And when you understand that, and then you learn ways to adjust that, right? You become stronger in your ability to communicate. You stop taking things personally. You're able to get past things easier, because you offer grace to each other. All right, another time out. And we're just about done. I'm going to share a few more things with you and some next steps for you. But this time out now, what did you hear in that? What did you discover? What did you learn in the last 20 minutes of this piece of it? What's one takeaway that you want to either get more information about or you want to learn more about? So let's take a second and put that in the notes. And then we've got a couple more things we're going to cover. We should be done right about 12 for you. Hopefully there's a little grace there, or about 1 o'clock. I mean, we'll try to finish right up at 1 if we can. We may go over just a few minutes to make sure we get everything in. But if you've got to go, I understand. We will have this recorded for everyone who registered and showed up today. You will receive the recording of this. Okay, so hopefully you wrote down something you've learned, maybe how you can adjust it if you've got time later, what behavior change needs to adapt based on what you've learned, and who might you share it with. Okay, so as we wrap up, there is another sheet in your notes, and I have it here that I want to give you. This is a gift to you. I used this when I was first learning DISC. It's a cheat sheet. You can, print this out. I can get you a copy of this. But what this does, let's say you're in sales, and you're going to a new client. And you need to if you understood their communication style, wouldn't you want to make an adjustment when you walk in? If they're direct and to the point and you start talking about family and sports, they're not going to be, you've lost them right there. So this shows you, based on your style and the people that you're going to talk to style, it gives you, in the right-hand column, gives you suggestions on how to adjust your communication style to the person you're talking to. So if you know that you're a D, right? And D's are confident, they're assertive, they're aggressive, they challenge the status quo. You know you're going to talk to a D. What do? If you're not a D, be direct, come straight to the point. Don't try to share a lot of details. Give them the bottom line. What's the win for them? What's it going to cost them? They want to get right to the meat, right? If you're talking to a C, what are they going to want? They want detail. They want every T crossed, every I dotted. They want to know what it's going to cost them and what it's going to take for them to get that objective. So this information becomes extremely helpful. We actually have a DISC report for salespeople and sales team leaders. So it's filtered. Remember I said they're filtered? You do the same DISC, but it filters the report through the lens of a salesperson or a sales team leader, right? We have an entrepreneurial one. We have for children and youth and families. It's the filter that they run the DISC through. So you can see that understanding and knowing your DISC can be vital to the success of your organization and your team. So we started talking about how communication is all about connecting. And connecting is critical to the success of any organization. Can you see how this could be helpful? Let me kind of get a couple eyes in here. And online, if you guys would put in the chat, just let us know. Can you see how this would be helpful for your life, in your communication, or in your organization? Just put that in the chat. If it's helpful, type in helpful. Okay? So John Maxwell, I'm a part of the John Maxwell team. I'm an executive director with them. I've been training and using John Maxwell's material and being a part of his training for the last 4 years now, but have been tracking with John Maxwell for, 20 some years. He's the #1 author on leadership. He's got over, what did they say, 3,000 books that he's written, which I can't even imagine what that would look like, that he's written on leadership and communication. But John Maxwell reminds us this. He says it's through connecting that we're able to increase our influence in every situation. See, y'all, it's really about our influence and our impact. Communication is about influence and impact, the people in the world around you. What kind of influence and impact are you having, and how effective is your communication to accomplish the objectives? And leadership is all about influence. We talk about this as a transformational leadership series. Communication is critical to successful leadership. And leadership is about growing and motivating and moving people, not just accomplishing objectives. So in this process, we do team training. We can come in and do your organization, your team, your leadership through the DISC, and then understand this and kind of do a deep dive in this concept, how it works, how it fits, how to understand your strengths, how to leverage your challenges, and how to adjust in your communication style to reach your objectives. All right, I told you I was going to ask you, so based on the information, how would you now rate your potential, because you haven't put it into practice yet, for communication impact in the future? Based on what you learned, if you put it into practice, do you believe that it will help you in your communication moving forward? So if you put a 7, can I get an 8 from you? A 9? Did you learn enough to say I can move the bar if I apply these simple things that I've learned, and if I can understand the style of the people around me? Hopefully the bar's moved a little bit. So as we wrap up, I want to do a couple things. I want to give you guys an opportunity. I've got a giveaway. So those of you guys that are online with me, you're going to have a question in a minute that's going to give you a chance to win a free DISC assessment. And then you guys in the room, I'm going to give one to you guys as well. But before we go, I want to share a couple opportunities. So we're going to drop in the chat the link to the DISC assessment. You can go online and order an assessment today if you want for yourself. You can order a group of them for your team. And so I'll encourage you to do that. There'll be a link that drops in there, and in the follow-up emails, I'll put that link in there as well. So if you want to know what your DISC is, you can order that DISC. There's a discount to order it, and I'll get that to you within 24 hours of you ordering it. I think you should all do that, but really what I would tell you is there's 30 pages of amazing information. It comes with practical and tactical resources, and it comes with a coaching guide. If you'd like to get coached through it, or your team to get coached through it, let me know. I'd love to talk to you about what that would look like to coach you or your team through understanding the DISC. So that should be in your chat, okay? The other thing I think we dropped in there, Val, and it should be, is we've got 2 files. If you want to see what a report looks like, I think those were dropped in there. There's a personal report. It's an example you can download and look at first. There's also an executive team report. Remember I told you can do the report? But you can also take your team through individual reports, and then I'll put it together in a team report to show you the dynamic and strengths and growth areas for your team. And that's in there as well to see an example if that's something that you would like to order. Okay, let's do the giveaway. So here's how this is going to work. Those of you guys that have stayed through the end, stay with me for just a couple more minutes. We're just finishing up. For you guys, if Latanya, will you get the thing with their cards in it? If you did not put your business card in there, we're going to draw your business card, and whoever gets drawn today, I'm going to send you a free link to get a DISC assessment. Now, here's the thing online, okay? I'm going to give you a heads up. Get your keyboard in front of you because you're going to have to type something in the chat. The first person to put this in the chat, because I don't know who all's with us, is going to get the free DISC link. Our team is going to record that and let you know. So here's what you need to put in the chat. What does DISC stand for? D-I-S-C. Put what the D-I-S-C stand for in the chat. The first one to have that in the chat will receive a link to the assessment. Latanya, will you you got a few more?
We're just stuffing the bucket.
Stuffing the ballot, okay. So if you're in line here in person, you get free lunch and you get to stuff the ballot. All right, here we go. I don't know, should I throw this out? Okay, here we go. All right, Jennifer. All right, with Community Health First, we are. So I will get you, hang on that for me. I'll email you the information. You'll have it by the end of the day. Okay, so that you can take that assessment. So last thing, guys, I know we've crammed a lot in here in a short period of time. I hope you're still with me. Let me just share what's coming up next and how you can help us. So next month, we asked, before we started, early in the year, we sent out a survey. We got about 70 responses from industry and businesses asking what are the #1 challenges or concerns you see going into 2021. The things we've talked about so far have been responding to the survey we gave you. Next month is no different. We're going to talk about employee engagement. We're going to talk about moving from disengaged to engaged employees, and that's going to be on April 13th. We can also register today. I don't know if it'll be dropped in there. If we can drop, did I give you that to drop in there, Val? If not, it'll be in the evaluation email that comes after this, where you can begin to register today for next month's Transformational Leadership Series Lunch and Learn and webinar. We want to invite you to come and be here. I'd love to fill this room up. There's a lot more energy. But we'd love to have you be here. You can sign up to be here in person or continue to be a part of it and bring your teams online. We'd love for you to do that as well. But our desire and our passion in partnership with the Alliance and Meta Staffing Services is to continue to add value to you guys. Listen, here's really the truth. I think we all have, myself especially and included, we have Zoom and virtual world fatigue. So the fact that you're here, that you showed up for an hour lunch and learn and allowed us to do this, I thank you and I honor you and I bless you, because I know if we could track the hours we spent online this last year and got paid for every hour we were online, we could retire. I know it's challenging. So our desire is not to just give you more information you can't use, but to come together and give you information that you can take away today and use, and to offer you opportunities to continue to grow your organization and your team. And so that's why we're doing this. And that's our passion and our desire. The way you'll also help us is when you get the follow-up email that says, thank you for being here, you'll get it in a couple hours. There's a survey in there. It'd take you 2 minutes. I think there's 6 questions to help us improve what we're doing. Now, y'all don't have to put in there technology and put a 0 on there, right? We know we got a hard start. Some things we can control and some things we can't. But I think we recovered well. Did we recover okay? And we're getting you out close to, it's like a little after 1 right now, so we're right at the nose. But thank you for your patience. Thank you for your commitment to your business, your own personal growth. Thank you for your commitment to our community. I pray that you guys will remain healthy, that your families are healthy, and that you'll be successful in your business and your endeavor. As you learn to communicate more effectively and more efficiently, you'll grow your influence, you'll grow your impact, and you'll grow your business. So guys, thanks for being a part of it. On behalf of the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region, Meta Staffing Services, and myself with Right Now Leadership, thank you for your time. And if there's anything we can do, you want to bring this into your companies, your teams, please let me know. Would love to continue to serve you. So thanks for being with us. Guys, God bless. We'll see you April 13th. Make sure you sign up.